Hi everyone, my name is Libby and I manage channelingmercredan.com, and I'm also Francis's daughter-in-law. We have Francis here, of course, deep trance medium and channeler of Mercredan, and he's going to get himself into, well, he's just getting himself into a meditative state to allow Mercredan to come through and talk with us today. And this is our very first monthly message with Mercredan, where we'll ask Mercredan a topical question and see what guidance he has for us on the matter. Today, we'll be asking Mercredan if we can trust banks and financial institutions, and if he can give us some insight on a potential, or if there is a potential for another global banking crisis, and how worried should we really be. Please like this video if you enjoy, so we can know if we should make more content similar to this, and make sure you subscribe if you want to see more. Also, if you have any questions or ideas for future subjects, then feel free to comment in the video below. We also run monthly live webcasts where you can submit your own questions. Click the link in the description to get updated on these. And now we're going to bring Francis to the screen and let's see what Mercredan has to say for us today. Over to you when you're ready, Francis.
Once again, welcome. It is my privilege and pleasure to come and spend these few moments of your time. Everything has a purpose. Everything creates, shall we say, feedback and relevance to everything else. You are so used to playing interactive games, and yet you have not yet worked out that life itself is such an interactive game. Everything one does affects the outcome and the future unfolding within such a game of life. Enough to begin a conversation.
Thank you, and thank you for being with us here again today. Our first question is, can we trust banks and financial institutions at this time?
Isn't it a wonder that you are finding your security at risk? Can you trust yourself? Can you trust that your own actions are in the interest of someone else? Otherwise, why should any organization trust anyone else? Do you follow what I mean? Because if everyone decides not to trust the banks, then the banks will certainly collapse in such a heap. And in doing so, isn't then that the prediction that one is making? So, shall you trust the banks? Of course, one has to learn to trust the self. And if you trust the self in regards to everyone else, then your decisions will be so different to what they are. We have talked so often about the plight of humanity, the plight, shall we say, of competition, the plight of winning at all costs. And you can watch the outcomes of that in your interactive game. You understand? So if one begins, shall we say, instead of picking up the nearest weapon, one begins to dig a garden. One is moving out of the old game and into a new order. And that is coming about whether one likes it or not, because every action is going to have a consequence, and every consequence is the result of the previous actions. So you have crises, of course you do, because every crisis is the consequence of previous decisions, and previous decisions often made by, shall we say, those characters one brought into being by the nature of oneself. You understand, everything is connected, everything has a purpose. Does it answer the question?
Sort of. It does in a roundabout way, but ultimately, are you telling us that if we don't trust the banks, then they'll collapse? So we need to learn to trust ourselves and trust the banks so they don't collapse?
Shall we say this? If you need to trust an organization, one has to be in a trusting organization, a trustworthy organization. How did it get to be the way that it got? Do you follow? Take us a different example. Your climate externally seems to be out of control. But who is controlling the out of control? Of course, it is exactly the same. It is those that make the decisions on the old game of competition and weaponizing everything. You are at war then in a organized fashion. One has been at war with the nature, that is the natural order of things, for hundreds of years. And as you have gained more advances, that is more technology, you have turned it into more ways to fight the eternal war, which is raging. But the internal war is really what is happening. People are at war with their own selves, their inner selves. You understand, they cannot trust themselves, so it is projected out and comes with the consequences. Of course, no one can avoid the consequences. And so the very raging of, shall we say, one's patterns, one's climate response is, shall we say, focused in the very areas that need cleaning up. So the winds come and they ravage that which needed to be cleaned up. It brings to the surface that which is out of balance. It is not some external thing. It is simply the consequences of that which went before. You understand what I'm saying? So the idea of, shall we say, banking, as you asked the question, is so that there can be an interaction in, shall we say, a reasonable approach, but it is now out of control. The result then is out of control responses. So what occurs, shall we say, is a single person, whether they are right or wrong is irrelevant. A single person can spread a rumor and your banking collapses. What sort of society do you want to live in? To follow what I mean? This, of course, is the biggest question of all, because you cannot escape. This is what I have called a shifting in consciousness. It appears as if that is a choice. I am not saying it is a choice. I am saying it is impossible to avoid, because all of your loans, shall we say, have come due at once. Now you have to pay for the consequences. And if you are willing, if there is a change of heart, if there is a balancing of the order, all of it will dissolve away. But continue on with the concept of right and wrong, and this evil person or that evil person. Everyone becomes an evil person for someone else. So you are continuing the battles to win. And there is no winning when you are fighting something that has more power than any human organization. And even as you do this, there are, shall we say, advanced sentient beings that are even more powerful than yourselves. It is, as I predict, the game of life that you choose. So it is nothing to do, shall we say, with one group being more evil than another. It is how does one bring balance to the system? You have been warned and warned and warned. And even at this juncture, you are making this one right and this one wrong, rather than seeing the whole. What is really happening? What is it all about? Because, put it this way, every war will come to an end, and there is no one ever wins. That is enough on that subject.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is, rather than preparing for the potential of another global banking crisis, instead focusing on uniting and coming together to bring balance to the system.
Of course. Shall we say this? The great master says, bring peace. If everyone was working for peace, there would be major changes in all the aspects of life. There would not be even such a thing as your traffic problems. How did that occur? How did that crisis come about? How is that wastage so important? Do you understand? If one takes out your traffic problems, enormous costs are saved just by not living in such an out of balance way. But will it occur? Of course, eventually, because, shall we say, everything has its consequence. Do you follow what I mean? There seems to be an attitude that you can finally win. How is this for winning? Everyone else's car is taken off the road except mine. Then I'm happy. But it is unlikely because everyone else wants their car on the road with the same benefits. Do you follow what I mean? Everyone wants to travel at the same time. Everybody wants, it's all about mine. And yet, there is no solution in that category. And so, when you are looking for spirit, you are looking at it for in my church, because my church is the right way, and this church says you are on the right track, and everybody else needs to take a lesson. Do you follow what I mean? And how can that be? How can there be any learning in that? How can that affect the very difficulties that each player brings to the game?
So do you have any practical guidance if the answer is working towards peace? What can I do and what can other individuals do to work towards that?
When you broadcast peace, when every action is one that brings peace, one might say, I would like to follow up, but we should sit and find peace. Where in my life am I not at peace? Am I at peace with my children? Am I at peace with my spouse? Am I at peace with my location? Am I at peace with my community? Am I at peace with my body? Am I at peace in my mind? Do you understand? One starts with creating peace because peace is a broadcast. As I have pointed out, one lives in a nested fields of influence. When you bring peace in your own field, you bring it automatically to the family as such. What you bring about is you bring up where peace is not. And so peace can be brought by actions and thoughts and recognition. Do you follow what I mean? And then you begin to bring peace into your community, that is your acquaintances and friends and so on. You understand, they start to see you are at peace, and I am not. How do you come to peace? What are you doing? You understand? Because everyone knows how to bring peace into their lives. That is being helpful. Shall we say you see someone on the street that needs help and you ignore. They are on their own. That is not going to bring you peace. Even leaving the piece of litter, the gutter, doesn't bring peace because it affects the field you live in. Do you follow what I mean? Because you look around and you watch your television and you're advertising for picking up the litter, and you agree. Everyone should do that, but you leave the litter in the gutter and you are not at peace. Do you see what I mean? It is endless activity. Recognizing one works for spirit by taking such actions. One brings balance to the forces by taking such actions.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I want to say, isn't that simple? You think that you have to do big things to bring about such peace, but that is not the case. One has to look after others. One has to recognize that whatever you do has an effect. And the question is not whether it benefits health, but does it benefit the field in which I live? Is there less that I have to see where I'm at war with? I'm at disregard, I am at avoidance, and so on, because it affects everything. When you have an environment that is out of balance, that you are living in, then the environment on the inside will reflect that. One thinks, for example, that life has a short time, but the time is relevant to the balance within.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else?
I think we have made a statement that, shall I predict, is undeniable. So shall we say thank you for your time and your appreciation? And shall we say, let all who listen work together, because this is indeed the shift in consciousness. Thank you, and goodbye for now.
Thank you. Thank you so much.